Since ancient times, Sicily has been a battleground. Greeks, Carthaginians, Romans, both east and west, Vandals, Arabs, Normans, and Italians have fought over the island. In July 1943, the Allies added a new chapter to Sicily's violent history when they launched Operation Husky, the invasion of the island. These landings were the first step in the attack on the so-called soft underbelly of Europe during World War II. Overall, Operation Husky was successful, but it got off to a very rocky start. In this video, we'll be looking at the initial landings on Sicily, plus the days following, using recollections, reports, and quotes from those who were there. It is not intended to be a comprehensive look at the landings on Sicily. These stories are used to give us a sense of what it was like to experience the landing in Sicily and the short period after. The Airborne. First thing to go wrong with Husky was the airborne drops. Late on July 9th, the American paratroopers and British glider-borne troops landed on Sicily. The heavy winds caused havoc as only 12 of the 144 British gliders landed on target outside of Syracuse. 69 crashed into the sea, while the rest were dispersed over a wide area. In the American sector, 3,400 paratroopers were widely scattered. They worked in small isolated groups to cause confusion in the Axis rear areas by attacking patrols and cutting communication lines. However, this was not their main objective, as they were supposed to secure roads and enemy gun positions, but could not due to the scattered drop. Later airborne landings and drops faced difficulties from friendly fire. A report from the 313th Troop Carrier Group about the operations on July 11th noted that, on what information indicated was friendly territory, was found to be more dangerous than what information indicated as hostile territory. The airborne landings were not the only thing to go wrong. The landings. Early on July 10th, 1943, American, British, and Canadian troops landed on the southeast corner of Sicily. This area was chosen as it had some of the widest and most accessible beaches for amphibious operations. Also, there was a large number of airfields in the southeast part of the island, which would need to be captured to protect the Allied fleet from air attack. Rough weather caused many problems, as landing ships, many being used for the first time in combat, were pushed off course and landed in the wrong spots. Sandbars stopped some vessels from reaching the beach. Able seaman Fred Turnbull of the Royal Canadian Navy Volunteer Reserve brought British troops ashore aboard a landing craft assault, commonly known as the LCA. He recalled, "And I can remember at Sicily, my first operation, as I say, I can remember that was our main concern. We were so concerned with the roughness of the seas, we sort of forgot about where we were going. In other words, what we were going to face on the beach. And the troops themselves were so sick, they were glad to get off the landing craft." He remembered that the LCA bounced around like a cork. The landing of the British 40 Royal Marine Commando on Sicily was scattered. Some members of P Troop landed closer to the Canadian beach than the one they were assigned to. Despite the difficulties, they reorganized and began to move. Their war diary read, "Meanwhile, Force 2 advancing further inland found very little opposition. They searched every house but found no military personnel. At one house, 2 young male civilians rushed a TSM, a Thompson submachine gunner, of P Troop with an axe. The Tommy gunner was forced to fire to save himself. One civilian was wounded, and the other, seeing that his comrade was hit, made off and was not seen again. An LM, light machine gunner, hearing voices from a house, opened fire on the house. Later, 2 dead Italians were discovered." The 1st Canadian Infantry Division landed near Pechino. Bruce Walker of the 48th Highlanders was one of those Canadians. He recalled that, "The landing was a bit of a screw-up too, because we didn't do it on assault. We went down the scrambling nets into this thing. It was an LCI, landing craft infantry." He continued on, "We hit a sandbar, I guess 300 or 400 yards out from shore. And along came this sort of squadron of ducks, amphibious trucks, and they picked us up and drove us right onto the beach. The only dry-foot landing I ever made." Walker noted that himself and many other troops had been suntanning on the journey to Sicily, which caused bad sunburns. "And I had a radio set and a rifle and a pack, painful. And it was hot when we landed. I think it was around 100 or 110 or something like that degrees." Robert Kingstone, Brigade Major of 1st Canadian Infantry Brigade, also recalled the issue of the sandbars. "Well, the problem was that our landing craft could not get through and put us on the beach. They were liable to let us off in fairly deep water. So we were switched from landing craft of various sorts, a fair substantial number of people, into ducks, which could roll over the sandbar and roll up on the beach. Now, in light of the fact if there was not to be serious opposition, this worked. If there had been, it would have been murder. The landings in the American sector were not as easy. Ensign Robert Halperin of the United States Naval Reserve was aboard one of the vessels marking the beach for the landing craft of the main assault wave. He recalled seeing the naval bombardment. I am not too familiar with naval gunfire, but having found myself in a ringside seat, I was able to witness an amazing display of accuracy. Sometime before the waves appeared, I had dropped anchor off the center of Yellow Beach, anxiously wondering what had caused the delay of our landing craft. Continued signally to seaward for some 70 minutes, having not been advised of the delay of H hour. When the destroyers opened up and let go their first salvo, I thought the shells would hit the boat. The burst hit directly on the beach, and after some 30 seconds, small fires broke out. I saw no shells fall short, and as I looked up and down the beach, it appeared like peas being dropped into a cup. The shelling kept up for some 6 minutes as I recall, and when the tracers struck rock on the beaches, we could see them ricochet. Several men in the boat claimed they could see the sand fly. At this point, I decided I was too close to the shore and moved out another 200 yards. First waves appeared and landed a little to the northwest of our position. The timing looked good. The support boat group fired their rockets, which arced high and burst on the beach and beyond. It must have proved amazing to the enemy to find our gunfire as accurate as in total darkness. A report from the commanding officer of USS LST 326 detailed their experience just off Yellow Beach. At H-30, the support ships opened up a terrific shelling of shore installations. While the boats were moving in toward the beach, powerful searchlights on the shore were turned on and played over the water. For unknown reasons, these lights were all extinguished about 15 minutes before the boats beached. While the ship lay at anchor, waiting the return of the boats, we were attacked by aircraft. One bomb exploded in the water 600 yards, bearing 010 degrees. A short while later, a plane was first heard and then seen diving towards us, our starboard beam. All guns opened fire, and a few seconds later, it was seen to burst into flame and fall into the sea on our port beam about 1/2 mile away. Derrill M. Daniel was the commander of 2nd Battalion of the 26th Infantry Regiment, 1st U.S. Infantry Division during the landings in Sicily. He described coming ashore. These fires began to fade before the line of departure was reached, and some of our boats did go astray. One from my battalion landed 5 miles away, although in general, everyone in the division landed at least on the correct beach. For instance, my boat, after considerable coaching on my part, touched down at exactly the spot previously intended in the middle of my battalion beach. Naturally, after such excellent navigation, it was perfectly normal to find that none of the assault wave of the battalion had touched down within 200 yards of that point. We dashed off the beach, and when not more than 20 yards from the waterline, fell into a machine gun foxhole, still manned by 2 Italians. Fortunately, they had given up firing some minutes before, and were just waiting for someone to find them. Daniel continues on as he describes moving inland toward the battalion objective. Just as we were crossing the road, about a mile from the beach, we heard a motorcycle approaching from the east. A grenade was tossed in front of the motorcycle, and the driver ran into the ditch. After he was picked up and dusted off, he put up quite an argument that he could not be captured because he was starting out on leave and just wanted to go on home. He went down to the beach. We could look back at Gela and see that a very brisk fight was going on there. By mid-morning, our 3rd Battalion began closing up on their objective between us and the beach. We could look across the Gala River Valley to Ponte Olivio Airport, and the naval gunfire officer took great delight in putting pinpoint fire on the ACAC positions and other defenses that could be identified. By noon, also, the 16th Infantry had secured the road junction to our south. Our 1st Battalion and the Ranger Force, after overcoming stiff resistance, had completely cleared Gela and silenced all coastal batteries in the vicinity. The paratroopers that were to be in the vicinity of the road junction in the 16th area were not located, and it was later determined that they had been scattered all over southwestern Sicily. Daniel described the German-Italian armored counterattack that happened at Gela on July 11th. The tanks, however, proceeded on toward Gela. The 2nd Battalion brought artillery and naval gunfire down on the 20 tanks as soon as they appeared after overrunning the 3rd Battalion. 3 tanks reached our position. One was knocked out by a bazooka. We still had no AT or anti-tank guns. One surrendered when he saw the other one knocked out, and when he realized he was in and amongst dug-in infantry. The third tank went clear through toward the outskirts of Gela, where it was knocked out by a bazooka man on a rooftop. Battle observations. There are a few conclusions that we can draw from these primary sources. Across all landing beaches, navigation was a major issue. Landing craft had a difficult time moving through the rough waters, and many landed in the wrong spots. Luckily, and this is the next observation, the Italian coastal defenders largely lacked the will to fight. If Axis resistance at the beaches had been more determined, there would have been a lot more Allied casualties. Friendly fire against Allied aircraft was also a major issue, and one of the lessons learned at Sicily, and that was applied in Normandy, was the invasion stripes, to give an identifiable way of telling the different aircraft apart. Operation Husky provided many lessons that were studied and learned for future operations.